Cluster 2, your facilitators are on the line. Sandri, can I give over to you? Cluster 2, can you hear me? Annelien, Margriet?
Sorry,
I can hear you.
Maria, I can hear you.
Okay, Sandri, can I give over to you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandri Rademeier and I will be your facilitator this morning. You have joined the cluster that will be responsible to have a discussion around opportunities and working together in the mining sector, manufacturing, waste economy, water, sanitation, energy, and then also the education sector with specific reference to the skills development, further and tertiary education. I will be your facilitator this morning and I'm from Impact Catalyst. Our co-facilitator this morning is Hannes Claessens. So before we start with this session, I'm going to ask that we all introduce each other. I will only ask for a few seconds for you to give your name, your organization that you are representing and in which sector you are falling. And with that I mean if you can give an indication, are you part of the manufacturing cluster or are you part of the water sector or the mining sector, etc. So we have currently 17 participants in this sector. I also want to highlight that there are some of the participants are from the Office of the Premier and from Impact Catalyst. So we also have our domain experts that contributed to the LDP content in this session. So if you introduce yourself, please also highlight that what part of the LDP you have contributed to. I'm going to start with Ajit. Can you please introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ajit Gopal from the CSIR, representing the manufacturing sector, and I contributed towards some of the technical inputs to the current plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajit. Alex Kumalo.
Good morning, colleagues. Alex Kumalo from the Minerals Council South Africa. I did not make any contribution. It's the first time I see the document, so I'm a bit overwhelmed by 200 pages, but hopefully I'll be able to keep up. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I'm very glad that the Minerals Council is also in this team. Flexen, can you introduce yourself?
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Flexon Magweregwede. I'm a senior researcher within the CSR mining cluster. I contributed to the mining section in the document. Thank you.
Thank you. Hilda, can you introduce yourself?
Morning, colleagues. It's Hilda Mtimonye from South African National Parks, responsible for economic development. Thank you.
It's great. Thank you for attending. Margriet.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm Margriet de Pre, also part of the project team. I contributed to the socioeconomic profile of the LDP, specifically with an emphasis on the human settlement sector.
Natalie.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Natalie Hendricks. I'm from Coca-Cola Beverages South Africa, and I have not contributed yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Newton, can you introduce yourself?
Newton Baloyi from a company called Sedge. We are consultants. We was invited to present to the HOD forum on the LDP with regards to how to integrate mine with the local economies. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Newton. It will also be great to hear your inputs this morning. Noel, you are one of the media, am I right? Please introduce. And Martin, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Martin Pasolini. I'm from Anglo American Platinum. My colleagues have contributed.
Thank you, Martin. Raki, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Raki Raghunanan from the SIP office, where we look at unlocking the Northern Mineral Belt with Waterberg as the catalyst. This is the first time I'm attending and the first time I've seen the document. I hope I can contribute going forward. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm sure you will be able to contribute. SIP 1 is one of these, if not the most important SIP in the province. Saddam?
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Saddam Matanzima from the CSIR. I contributed on the post-school education and the skills development. I must mention that I'm currently on leave, but I had to make time for this meeting.
Yes, thank you, Saddam. That just shows the commitment of yourselves to this process. Thank you for that. Shanil, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, colleagues. Shanil Bach from IQ. Also the document.
And Shanil, we could not hear you well. Can you please just repeat?
Good morning. Is this any better?
Yes, it's better.
Okay. I'm just saying that.
Okay, Shanil, we don't hear you now again. I recommend that you...
So sorry about that. Is this better?
Yes, that is.
So sorry about that. Is this better?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I was just saying Shanil Bachu from IQ Business, which is a management consulting firm, and I haven't contributed to the document.
Good. Is there anyone I skipped that haven't introduced themselves? Charles and Annelien, you've met this morning. They are both from Impact Catalyst, and we have also on the call Dile. She's also from Impact Catalyst and also our stakeholder engagement. Suzanne, your hand is up.
Yes, I haven't introduced myself yet. Suzanne Oelofse from the CSIR, and I contributed to the waste economy in the document.
Thank you, Suzanne. Could any other person who has not introduced themselves? Suzanne, you may lower your hand then. Thank you. There are, as we have half an hour to give our inputs to the process, but as we said, there will be an opportunity afterwards to also make a contribution. So I'm going to share my screen where I've just highlighted a few of the questions that I want us to use to bring the discussion forward. So the first one, as Charles has indicated, it's important for us to understand what does the future of your sector look like in the province, especially when it comes to mining and manufacturing. You will remember, as Annelien has presented, our focus in the short term is to recover from COVID. But as we are recovering, we are also identifying opportunities to move stronger using 4IR technology. So we want to understand from your sector, how are you progressing towards the 4IR industry? We also want to understand, what are the enablers that your industry needs from government, but further to that, what can you contribute? So I'm going to start by first opening up a discussion on the point 1 and 2 of my slide. Can you all see my slide in front of you?
Yes, Andre.
The first 2 discussion points is, please give us an overview. What is the future of your sector in the province? Charles mentioned the potential automation and mechanization that we foresee. So I'm going to start with asking our mining sector, how do you see the future here in Limpopo? We have on the call the council, but also Anglo that I've managed to see. Can I get your views on that? Martin, can I start with you? How do you foresee the future of the mining sector here? Where do you see opportunities, and what are the enablers that you need from government to become more competitive and to grow the mining sector?
Can I just confirm, over what time period are you looking? Is it the next 5 years or beyond that?
For now, we look at the first 5 years, but always looking in the longer term as well.
Okay. And it's beyond modernization and mechanization. So just firstly, what our views around what we see as Anglo-American in mining in southern or in Limpopo, and then in addition to that, the evolution towards the fourth industrial revolution. Is that just so I can clarify the question?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So I think as Anglo-American Platinum, we have got numerous mining project operations in Limpopo. I think for us, and it's something that is picked up in this cluster as well, is one of the bigger enablers to our future operations and growth is issues like access to water, and it is covered in this plan. It's around social stability, the ability to there's quite a bit of unrest in and around mining operations, and so a province that has some form of social stability. As we think to modernization and mechanization, that is a pathway for us. We don't necessarily see it as a negative to employment, and certainly one which, if managed correctly, and I think this is the point, can be a net positive, ensuring that the jobs we create, or the new jobs that we create, more than offset those that potentially are impacted by greater amounts of automation. To achieve that, you need the ability to upskill the workforce, and I think for us to be clear as to what those needs are at the outset, such that we ensure that the skills that we require are those that we develop in province. In particular, part of this cluster is around manufacturing. If there's a move to greater level of mechanization, how do we bring the necessary manufacturing support to support that into the province? So we certainly, as Anglo Platinum, have a number of potential projects that we will look to invest in. But as I indicated, things like water, security of energy, which is outside of this remit, and then a stable province, socially stable province.
Yes. Thank you, Martin. That was very valuable contributions, and you will see that we have clustered also the water sector in this team to identify those opportunities and enablers that they need to plan for. Can I get some comments from the water team and also from the education team? Martin has mentioned that there is a need for enablers in terms of water, but also that there will be skills needed as we move towards modernization and automation in the industry. Any questions for clarity or alignment from anyone on the team? Newton, your hand is up. You may talk.
Thank you. A few comments. Firstly, I think the instability that was mentioned it's really needs serious intervention. It's a threat to the mining sector in general. And it happens because there are three key stakeholders that are not coming together, which is government, its mines, and the communities. And I think this LDP, as we have it, it's quite good. I think that the key is who drives it. And a vehicle, an institution is necessary to bring the three stakeholders together. And the absence of that vehicle leads to lack of integration, which is part of the reasons for the strikes. But beyond that, we do need to deal with strikes. And from a technical point of view, the reason we have strikes is because the CAPEX and the OPEX of projects don't necessarily address local participation. It's always short-term interventions and nothing sustainable. And we are missing a huge opportunity to deal with that. We tend to deal with local communities in terms of social labor plans. Those are small a budget to address local community issues. Mining is a value chain process. It's got your whole supply chain, and that whole supply chain has got participation elements for communities at different levels. And I think the missing link at the moment is that those who drive mining are not coordinated between the three key stakeholders. But additional to that, there is absence of technical teams. Mining is engineering work, and it's in engineering where opportunities are created. And those are currently left outside. It's seen as a social performance problem, whereas it's actually a supply chain problem. And we need to focus in this plan to look at who drives that and how do we enable that integration between the primary stakeholders that need to be consulted and involved in the entire process of development of a mine. And the key to that is your engineering divisions. Those are currently not part of this whole process, and they don't become part throughout the entire implementation. And I'm speaking that from being a consultant, being one of them. We do consulting work for all the mines, including Anglo, and that gap is there, it's real, and it's not happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Newton. Alex, your hand is up. You're welcome to give your inputs.
Thanks, Sandri. Just to add to first what Martin was saying around some of the inputs, electricity is quite critical. If you look at the Far Eastern Limb, we generally have some bulk mining operations, so chrome in particular, and we have got challenges with access to electricity. So we are not adding much value. We are shipping chrome ore out of the country without any value addition. But even with that aspect of the logistics, it is inadequate. We need an improved and effective and efficient rail system that will allow the mining industry to survive into the future. When it comes to the issues around, social stability, that is the elephant in the room. And I think if we all began to play our roles, play them properly, some of the challenges could be dealt with. The rule of law needs to apply, and that we often turn a blind eye to. The issue of services, provision of services, including water. Again, we all need to play our part, particularly local government and the district as the water service authority. And I think some of the things around skills are quite important. We need to be able to sit here and say, what kind of skills are we looking for 10 years from now? Because none of the new mines or the current mines that are in Limpopo are going to employ more people because they're going to mechanize, which means that they will, in terms of the quantum, we'll see a reduction, but we'll see an increase in terms of the quality of those skills that are required. But those skills will come from Gauteng if we do not work hard to ensure that we create the pool in Limpopo for that for mines to be able to access the skills that they will require going forward. So it's around those issues that I think we need to attend to, and they're all long term, but they all require a solid base and a vision that takes us into the future in the most appropriate manner. Thanks, Andre.
Thank you. And I think I start to see a pattern with the comments that's received because it all relates to the need for infrastructure and then social stability. And the question becomes now, how do we overcome that? Saddam, your hand is up. Can you please give your inputs?
Thank you, Sandri. Colleagues, I heard you mention, like almost all of you, you highlighted the skills as one of the key elements that one has to look into. My contribution was around that to this, provincial developmental plan. I was looking at, the post-education and the training system in the province. And we have identified a number of gaps that one need to, to close in terms of the skills programs that the province is offering in terms of the different institutions that the province has. For instance, if you look at the TVET colleges in the province, the programs that they are offering, there seem to be a misalignment in terms of what the industry needs and what is being offered. So one need to then look into that misalignment and see how we can then close that gap. And the way to do that is to ensure that the TVET colleges in that area and also the other training centers, they work closer with the industry. For instance, now when we talk of upskilling, and reskilling, we are not only looking at, the existing students that, the education institutions have. We are also looking at, the current workforce that different industries have employed, to see as to how we can then, upskill the current workforce, so that the current workforce can be prepared, for all these, disrupting technologies that are introduced by 4IR. And that also then talks to the reskilling, because now if you look at, a number of reports, like almost all the reports that the World Economic Forum, has published on future jobs, it talks about the upskilling and reskilling. And the reskilling, comes about, the whole disruption that is being made by the disruptive 4IR technologies. So that calls for the reskilling of the existing workforce so that the workforce can be prepared, for the adoption of these, new technologies. And that has to be done with speed, because these disruptions, they happen like at a very, fast pace. So, like I said, the key element in addressing those challenges is for the industry to work closer, with the educational institutions. I've highlighted TVET colleges, but in Limpopo, we also have, two, universities that one also need to engage around that. So like one of the colleagues highlighted, this is a long-term, intervention. However, we need to take actions now and bring the relevant stakeholders on board, to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Saddam. We will definitely make that as a way forward also in terms of this plan. I also want to highlight the next set of questions before I take the other hands that are up, and that is to also contribute by saying what do you as sector, how can you contribute? Because the purpose of today is for you to say what are the enablers you need from government within your future plan to make you more competitive, but simultaneously is also to say what can you contribute to achieving economic growth in the province and to support. And what we also want to hear, are there any joint actions that government and private sector can do together? Do you have perhaps programs that you are running that government can work with you? And also, how do you position yourself in the fourth industrial revolution? So I want to add those two further discussion points as part of the further contributions. Hilda, you had your hand up. You're welcome.
Hello?
Yes, Matapelo.
Can you see my hand?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Matapelo can go first, and then I'll come after her.
Okay. Welcome. Matapelo, please do.
Sorry, Hilda, because yeah. Okay,
No,
let
it's
me.
fine. I've seen your hand for a longer time. It's fine.
Thank you. So I just wanted to add add to what Newton and Alex were talking about in terms of like the social ills around the mining communities. I mean, for the many projects that I've worked on in developing mines, we mainly focus on the engineering part and forget about the social part of it. Yes, people get attracted to the area because they want jobs, but then I think the future of mining developments should also look at, okay, the mines can only absorb a certain number of people and a certain caliber of people. So with the many people that it will attract, I mean, what is it? How are we planning for them, and what kind of like enterprises or businesses are we developing around the mine so that we can absorb these people? So yeah, I think that's one of the main things why we have like strikes, because people want jobs and people want work, and unfortunately, okay, the mine is in the business of developing mines, so I suppose everyone like the government, private sector, and the mining industry needs to look at this in a holistic manner. I mean, when we develop a mine, what else are we putting in place to make sure that we absorb all these people that would be attracted to the area that were not necessarily there? So I think that's the part we are missing when we look at the mining industry. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Matapelo. Hilda?
Thank you. Maybe we need to look at the following issues. All of us, be government, be private sector, be NGO, we are all want to address three issues, which is poverty reduction, unemployment, as well as inequality. And then we look at the mining sector and we look at Limpopo and say, what are the sectors, economic sectors within Limpopo? It's mining, it's agriculture, it's tourism, stroke, conservation. So how do we ensure that from mining point of view, there can be a growth pattern towards other sectors, especially when the mine closes? So I'm looking at mining as a primary sector that can give support to secondary sectors. So mining as a sector has 5 embedded sectors, which is manufacturing, waste, water, education. So we're looking at the sectors, the ministries that are involved that will ensure integration. That you've got mining, then you've got manufacturing as an economic cluster, and then you've got waste that comes from environmental affairs, and then you've got water and sanitation, and then education that will ensure that a growth pattern of the communities to these different sectors that we're talking about. Maybe where we're missing as people or as society, it's that integration that will ensure sustainability. So I'll be talking from tourism point of view to say that if we're looking at Limpopo and say the most prevalent sector there is agriculture and tourism. But where I would want mining to be cognizant of when they lay off, which sectors can absorb the labor force that has been laid off by mining. So if there's that integration, we will know that
Hilda, we lost your audio. Am I the only one not hearing her?
No, we can not hear her either.
I also can't hear her.
Okay. Hilda, we cannot hear you. For the sake of time, while Hilda is joining us again, Alex, you have your hand up. You're welcome to talk.
Thanks, Sandy. Just on the issue of how intertwined mining is. I mean, mining is probably one of the very few industries that can start up a new town. But we know that mineral resources are finite. So it becomes quite important that we begin to think of ensuring that we move away from the notion of mining towns into towns that have got a diversified economy. So not just mining that is strong, but where you can use the mining value chain to diversify the local economy, so that even if it's a short life mine, I mean, some mines have got a mining horizon of only 10 years, 20 years. I mean, Martin is lucky with Mukhalakwe, with a lot more than that. But it becomes important that we approach development in a more inclusive manner that says we will not have a mining town, but we will have a town that has mining as one of the economic activities that we have in that particular area, so that then we don't have to have the issue of what happens at mine closure with 1,000 workers, 2,000 workers that may be laid off 10, 15 years down the road, having established townships that are significant in size because of the attraction of people to the economic activity. So for me, it is quite important that we always look at saying, how can we utilize the value chain? It doesn't have to be just mining. I mean, any of the other sectors, if it's manufacturing, if it's water and sanitation, how do we ensure that we use those value chains, to strengthen those economies? Thanks, Andy. Sandy.
Thank you, Alec. Hilda, we are glad you're back. Please continue.
I don't know what happened. And then we look at how best do we help government to ensure sustainable livelihoods, but also ensuring social cohesion. It can only happen if there's integration and understanding the role played by different sectors. And we don't want a situation where after mining, the town becomes ghost in Palabora, where now we are left with as Sandparks or as Kruger. Now, if nothing happens in mining, there's high unemployment, and now we become the only employer of choice. So you look at all the sectors that I spoke about, especially the secondary one that are embedded under mining, and say, how then do we ensure that manufacturing that comes from mining can create jobs? It will be a lot. And then waste also is created by mining. How do we ensure that we reskill or we upskill or we educate people to do waste management or waste recycling from mining aspect? And that will enable them to go to other waste recycling opportunities. Water and sanitation, the same. As soon as water affairs provide water and sanitation, maybe through housing, how do we ensure that communities can be able to go undertake courses on fixing the leaks and all these things come from one sector, being mining, that has given us secondary opportunities. And later on, they will go either to agriculture or to tourism, because from where I'm standing, we don't want a situation where we're competing with mining. Half of the time, conservation competes with mining. And then we say that conservation has sustainable jobs and mining doesn't have sustainable jobs. But we need to integrate and say, if you stop, we can carry on from you to ensure that social cohesion and sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda. I think you've asked very good questions and ones that this team really need to start to also discuss. And the first is, how do we create manufacturing and waste recycling as further value change? And I also please I'm going to give Charles an opportunity to talk, but then Natalie, I would like to get your view as part of the manufacturing sector after Charles. Charles, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. So in terms of what has been said, I think there's everything has been really valuable inputs. I would like to add one piece to it, and that is that we keep on focusing job opportunities in terms of areas around the mine, and I think what we've seen during COVID has already changed the context slightly. and it's changed the context slightly in two ways. So firstly, in the future, many of the employees that could potentially work at the mine doesn't necessarily have to be co-located to the mine. Just as an example. So, and I think Anglo has many examples of those in, for example, other places, and I think the Canadian mines is a good example, where the remote truck drivers are sitting in towns, in some cases hundreds of kilometers away from the mine, and they operate the trucks. And it was a way of creating new job opportunities for housewives, where housewife can be trained, for example, to drive a truck. The same with any heavy machinery in a mine in the future. So the context is going to change slightly in the future in terms of spatial orientation of where work is coming from. Because the spatial orientation, as we've seen with COVID and as we're seeing in this meeting, might be slightly different. Saying that, it also creates opportunity. So one of the things that we, for example, have been discussing between Impact Catalyst mine partners recently in some of the strategy sessions was, how do we revitalize some of these areas with other skills? For example, you can have a very highly skilled person that is usually confined to the city. Because of COVID, he can now go and stay in any rural area he wants because he can still do his job. So you can even get foreigners. You can get somebody that works for Anglo in the UK, and he can come and work in Mogalakwena, and he can make that his home, and he can still continue working from Mogalakwena in his corporate job wherever he is in the world. So in terms of the way that we see the world changing, the spatial orientation is becoming less of an issue. Not for all jobs, please be, I'm not saying it's for all jobs, but for a lot of the jobs, it does create a risk and opportunity. It does create a risk because some of the mechanized work can go to cities where kids are maybe a bit more skilled in terms of gamification, in terms of requirements that is required for the type of work. And secondly, it creates opportunity, so that if you actually do that, the town planning right, and you can attract talent from wherever they are in the country to come and stay in your town, you can actually have an economic boom because highly skilled people bring money to a town. So the question is, how do you attract more people to come and stay in rural areas? Because it's now possible. And how do you prevent jobs from going somewhere else because of a lack of skills? And that has been explained. So I do think we need to think slightly different in terms of how do we benefit communities in the future, because the future is going to look slightly different than it looked in the past.
Yes, thank you, Shaw. Natalie, can I ask your comment? And then I would also like to get the comments from Raki, especially in terms of the SIP program. Are there any inputs you'd like to add?
Sure. Hi, Sunri. Good morning, colleagues. Just a few comments. Some of the comments made earlier aligns very much with what we are facing as Coca-Cola beverages based in Polokwane. I agree, you know, the social challenges that we face with communities and the frustrations that they experience when it comes to joblessness is a challenge. And I agree, I don't know if it was Alex who mentioned it earlier, who said that actually as we invest as organizations, we need to use our budgets, our CapEx budgets and the OpEx budgets to develop our communities. I'm totally in alignment. And I think we need to just, in this partnership with government, I think that that we are going to make the most impact instead of just these small CSI projects. Totally aligned with that. Water is a huge challenge for us. And I know that the water and sanitation is working really hard to fix the situation. We've got lots of water loss in the, because of ailing infrastructure, and of course then the nice mix of not getting enough water and the massive evaporation that takes place. I'd really feel a lot more comfortable if we can see like a serious concerted effort for a water saving campaign of some sort. My biggest fear is, as a huge water producer, and I mean, I suppose the mines are with us in this, is that communities turn on the organizations that are creating jobs and are producing outputs, economic value, to say, why do you have water and we don't have water? And of course, we're all trying to do something in this space. However, there's only so much the private sector can do. And I think if we can find a platform to address the issues of water scarcity and the threat that it offers every single business in this conversation today, we are going to this 5-year plan is not going to get on its feet. So that's my massive comment, so very small actually. So for me, I think this is a fantastic initiative, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you, Natalie. I'm going to give Raki an opportunity, and then Hannes, if you can respond to all the inputs that has been given on water, please, after Raki. Raki, please proceed.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. There's just listening to the conversations. There was a green city project that was included in SIP 1, which we reported on, the Lepelale Urban Development Green City. We've started this project in 2012, and in 2018 there were 3 pilot projects that were actually identified. It was the integrated waste management, investigate benefits and installation of the prepaid smart meters, installation of leak-less valves to prevent leakage, to prevent water loss. And I think Hilda will be interested in this as well, on the tourism, the local economic development and support. The concern that I have is that we are moving forward with the plan, but the area that we are stuck in now with is the funding of these pilot projects. So we're looking at the Presidential Infrastructure Fund, and maybe this is moving over to question 2 and 3 as to how government and private sector can assist, because we've got 3 pilot projects that haven't moved from 2018. So even though we are going forward, the concern is also around the funding models. I'm not sure because I haven't been involved before, it's the first time, but our funding models also being looked at when we're going forward, because we've got now 3 pilot projects that's been sitting from 2018. So that's just open to the floor for discussion if anyone can contribute.
Thank you, Raki. And I also want to add through that there are various programs that government is running where there is partnerships seeking, and that's one of the things that government is challenged by is actually getting partnerships with private sector. I'm thinking now of this session, all of you talk mostly about the mining sector, and the Mining Towns in Distress program really focused on identifying the enablers that's necessary to address the growth of the mining sector, but also the communities around the mines. It's all the aspects that we've been talking about this morning, but those plans to date have failed to bring partnerships together and to really identify the contributions of our private sector in addressing the issues that we are all talking about today. So my questioning is, why is that the case? As private sector, why is there, how do you see you can contribute more towards achieving, towards alleviating the distressed mining areas, and there we speak mostly about Lephalale, Thabazimbi northern area we are talking about Mogalakwena and the Sekhukhune area mostly. So those are the mining towns in distress, and also those that were identified where the municipalities are highly dependent on the mining sector. So what is your view on that? Maybe Martin from your side, and then also from the council, if you can give your view, please. Newton, your hand is up.
Oh, thank you. What is lacking with regards to the what's causing the distressed mining towns? I think Alex spoke to it already. The integration with the local economies is lacking. Mining opens secondary and tertiary opportunities. It almost links all the industries together into one. But the reason that doesn't happen is that that is not the core business of mines. It is the core business of government. Local economic development is the core competency of government, and government doesn't have that capacity. When you look at all those municipalities you mentioned now, all those areas, you go to local government, they don't have a local economic development capacity. So that is the missing link. To enable that to happen, we cannot look to government to drive it. We need to create different institutions or some arrangement, joint operating committees of some kind. But government, when government leads, it's compromised because we know there's corruption that exists. People want to influence processes unduly. If we have simple, unpolluted institutions that are driven by local economic development as a holistic approach, mines will gladly jump in. They are not, and many of the industries, they are not hostile to socioeconomic impact related issues. They are pro it, and it works for them. But the problem is that there's no driver, and that driver is supposed to be government. Government is pointing fingers at the mines and saying SLPs and all these things do something, but that enabling environment must be created by government. And the real issue here is that we need joint operating committees that are highly constituted by people of, people who are highly powered, high delegations, but not led by government, but becomes an enabler to government. So I think that's the missing link. Then we can create sustainable local economies, linking all the economies together on one special plan with one local economic development strategy. That doesn't exist at the moment.
Yes, thank you, Newton. I think that's valuable information, and that then, I think that all these plans are old now, and it requires a relook that can incorporate your recommendation, and I think it's very valid. Charles, your hand is still up. Is it an old hand?
It is an old hand. Thank you.
Good. Hilda, you are welcome to give your view.
Maybe I will differ slightly with Newton. You've got the district municipalities and local municipalities. And then you've got your LED, you've got your IDPs. And on annual basis, different sectors need to contribute or comment on the IDPs. And they know exactly what to do if we are all committed to local economic development and enhancing local economies. Where is the missing link? I'll take mining and say, we go through EIA, we go through EMPR, and then after the EIAs, you've established stakeholders there. So those stakeholders can, at the end of the day, becomes your technical expert that will provide support throughout. You retain them, and then you make sure that they provide you with what you want to see. And it's from different sectors that will contribute. If I look at mining and say, after mining, what happens? We can create tourism mining with a lot of opportunities there. But as communities or as society or as stakeholders, remember, government becomes an enabler, and then private sector implements on government enabling mechanism. So now we cannot operate outside the IDPs as different sectors because we take a cue from that. But we also need to understand, why am I in this space? What do I want to achieve? And how do I ensure economic growth in that local space, and what will be my contribution throughout as a particular sector. And you've got, what is this, LED fora, where every sector comes and participate within their sector and contribute. And then you've got your spatial development fora again, where this technical expertise contribute on spatial development plans and how do they affect and impact on their different sectors. So the problem is, do we send relevant people in this for us that can make contribution and take decision back to their institution and implement that? The answer is no. We just take people who will go there. The only time when you hear them talking is when they're talking about tea or they go to the toilet. They don't contribute to this thing. So at the end of the day, we are also impacting on what we want to see. So maybe it's high time that institution make sure that you've got your own local economic development person in your institution or in your sector that will go to this meeting, that will ensure that your institution is being taken care of, your comments are being taken care of, and then that will ensure integration and social cohesion and sustainability of each and every sector that plays that play a role in that space. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda. Gentlemen and ladies, we unfortunately has reached the end of our session. We are going to join now the larger group again, where there will be feedback sessions. But please, this is not your last opportunity to contribute. You're welcome to contact us for inputs, and then in the way forward at the end, you will also be explained how you can submit your further inputs after the session of this morning. Thank you for your participation, and perhaps Hannes will give a summary here after, so he will then consolidate all the inputs that has been received this morning. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day further. We see you in the next session.
Thank you.